Good evening. Welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the law, the Constitution, and the events of the day into your living room each month. Tonight, we're going to cover 3 exciting subjects, and myself, James Barrett, along with Mark Malakowski. What are we covering tonight, Mark?
Number one, we're going to talk about the U.S. Department of Justice is suing California over sanctuary cities, and I think that was triggered by Oakland Mayor, I think, Cheka Cheva Schaff, tipping off a lot of drug dealers and stuff so they can, hide their stash. Then the next thing is going to be tariffs, trade tariffs were announced, and on aluminum and steel. And the third thing we're going to talk about is the Oscars.
The Oscars?
The Oscars.
Wait a minute. That's great for us because we know we've been nominated so many times. Anyway, why don't we start with this is obviously the federal government that's suing the state of California over 3 of their laws they passed to actually protect the undocumented travelers. So tell me what's going on with that.
I think the flare-up happened when this Oakland Cheka Cheva Schaff, who's like the right-hand woman of Governor Brown, right? So that's...
Well, she followed in his footsteps.
Well, she's his protege, and I guess, she'll be the next governor in his place. Now, she's a dual citizen. She's an Israeli citizen and an American citizen. And Jeff Sessions said, well, we're going to have ICE come and arrest 1,000 like MS-13 and Norte Mexicanas and Sudamericanas who are dealing a lot of heroin.
Well, they're talking about criminals they're coming to arrest. They're not coming down to break families up and crying infants and things like that.
It's a crime family.
Yeah,
so
I guess it's a cartel family.
Yeah,
all
family.
At home. It's like leave it to Beaver or is it leave it to a kilo? So Come on, let's move it on.
So we have $80 billion worth of heroin and methamphetamine coming across the border, and a lot of that gets sold and distributed in
California.
In Oakland, for sure. And generally how that works, the street dealer usually grosses about 10 grand a day. They give about 5,000 to the local, beat cop. And then at every level, they bribe the government people.
Well, they have to keep kicking up to make sure there's no problem.
Yeah, and so I would say probably the capo at, MS-13 or Norte Mexicanas, they're probably giving Schaff, if she's involved, she's probably getting...
Well, she's not there handing her envelopes or anything, but she gets election fundraising, and we know this.
But the point is, now, if you are somehow involved in this and there's a lot of heroin on the street and the ICE comes and gets all this heroin, let's say they pick up 20 or 30, 40 million dollars of heroin, and you're somehow involved in the distribution, you come up short. It's not good to come up short to the mafia or to the MS-13.
No, it's not at all.
You can get your head chopped off for that by MS-13.
Well, actually, they go for, they use the hatchets.
The machetes, yeah. So anyway...
It's a friendly way to say hello.
It's a friendly way. So that's kind of what's happening. Now, what's really interesting about this is you have the Attorney General, Javier Becerra.
Yes, sir.
And the Attorney General, Javier Becerra, is a member, and I think when he was at Stanford, he might have been the president of MICHA. And MICHA is the Reconquistas, and there are people that believe that Azatlan...
Azatlan, there we are again.
California is part of Azatlan.
And Azatlan actually belongs to Mexico. The whole concept of Azatlan is that the repatriation of California back to Mexico. And because they can't do it by war, they've been doing it by slow invasion.
Well, the thing is, no, they do some violence. The MICHA has called for the ethnic cleansing of every white Christian in California. So there's no doubt about it. That is their sworn duty, if you're one of MICHA, is to kill every single white person in California.
Well, actually, that's not literally kill. It is more to supplant.
Well,
and that's why we're working through the politics.
They said ethnic cleansing. Now, if you look at ethnic cleansing in the past, and these are kind of Bolshevik people and they're supported by the Bolsheviks, well, the way they did ethnic cleansing in the Holodomor, they starved people. And if you tried to steal some grain, they would take your intestine, nail it to a telephone pole, and then whip you as you
an example.
As you ran around and unwind your like that. And when the mothers went to our buddy Lev Davidovich Borenstein, or Trotsky, right? But he was from the Bronx.
Right.
And all the money for the Russian Revolution came from the Bronx, the Lower East Side.
Well, how could you finance it?
Well, they
Otherwise, how
they
could they
did.
finance
They're
it?
the ones who bribed the army to overthrow the democratic government in
Wait a minute,
in
you're
Moscow.
trying to bring a comparison between the Trotsky
Well, I'm saying
and
this
the
is ethnic
current
cleansing.
regime that's
That's-
coming into California.
Well, I'm saying 11 million, right? Ukrainians were ethnically cleansed, okay? And then if we go to the gulags in Russia, they ethnically cleansed 40 million people. So what the Bolsheviks always do, they go, well, we don't believe in republics. Now, what's a republic?
What's a
It's equal protection
It's
under the
equal
law.
protection under the law.
Well,
of
democracy is like who gets the most votes.
course. Right. That's completely different.
So let's
And
say,
that's something that's lost on a lot of people.
so let's say you ethnically cleanse everyone who's going to vote against you, and then you have an election. You tend to win a lot.
You would
If
win.
If you notice these Bolshevik countries, right, they tend to, or like you look at California, right, they kind of ethnically cleansed us here. You know, they brought in, there's 90 million illegal aliens in the United States right now, probably 20 or 30.
Well, they say it's only 11 million, but
That's
we all
ridiculous.
know those numbers are not
No, that's
correct.
ridiculous. Those are the people who admitted to being
Those
illegal.
are admitted to
Okay, if you look at
illegal.
Bear Stearns, they found 20 million worth by looking at the money, and then the Border Patrol says
Well,
5
what
million.
they can do is they track the money's being shipped back
Yeah, but
to
also the
Mexico
Border
and
Patrol-
south
the
of
Border Patrol-
south of Mexico.
But
Actually,
when the Border Patrol says 5 million a year are coming in, that was from 2005. So that gives us 70 to 90 million. But the point of the matter is, you know, of course, those people start voting, you're going to start winning the elections.
Well, wait
So-
a minute. Motor voter allows that now
Yeah, sure.
because everybody gets a driver's license, and it sure as heck doesn't say in a driver's license that I'm not allowed to vote. It just says, hey, my name's my name.
Okay, so anyway, I wrote a little letter to our buddy, the Attorney General, and I said, since I'm a white Christian, and I'm going to be ethnically cleansed, I just wanted to do my funeral arrangements. What's going to happen to me, right? If
right.
you're going to pull my intestines out, that's okay. I could have an open coffin, but, and he said, is that how you're going to do it? And he said, thanks for supporting the Bolshevik Cheka Cheva of California and ethnic cleansing of all white Christians in the state of California. This is why we've looked at your methods. What we're going to do is, because we're going to use MS-13 and other Norte Americanos, they're going to like decapitate all the white people with a machete. So,
Well, I have a
what's-
question. Wait a minute,
but
hang
what's
on. Let's
happening
take
is-
it back to Oakland. How does this all revolve back to Oakland?
Well, it's all part of, you know, the Reconquista. You can't touch your shock troops, right? They have amnesty, right? So if you have MS-13 people dealing drugs, killing people, you can't arrest them.
Well, here's the problem with that. When we look back to what actually happened was, because California's been enacting the sanctuary state and the sanctuary cities and all this, the federal government felt that we're going to make an opinion and we're going to say, okay, here's what we're doing. We're going to say we're sending in ICE. We're going to arrest the known criminals that we have.
Right.
And unfortunately, what
Libby
the
gave him the
mayor
tip-off.
decided
Give him
to
the
do
tip-off.
was did the tip-off. And so although that some people debate how many people got away, the
About
fact
800.
is,
But
they
that
said
was
about
big time.
800 got away. They were all criminals, by the way.
Well,
These
you
aren't
gotta
nor-
understand,
just
any-
family men.
But any male illegal alien in the United States is also a felon because they didn't register the draft within 30 days of becoming 18. That's 5 years in prison and a $250,000
Well,
fine.
you know, they're not really enforcing the draft law.
Well, I'm just saying, but that technically every single male here who's an illegal is a felon, not just a
Right.
misdemeanor for crossing
Right.
the border, but they're felons too.
Right.
So people go, well, they just did a misdemeanor. No, they didn't. All of them who are
well,
males.
why don't
Okay.
we monitor this and start thinking? What's our second subject
Okay,
tonight,
so
Mark?
the second subject we're talking about aluminum and steel, putting tariffs on aluminum and steel. And the reason,
Wait a minute, you're talking about tariffs from all countries or just some countries?
well, I think mainly when you're talking about China was dumping a lot of steel in the United States. And you have to understand that China is set up a little bit different as a communist country. The mafia and the corporation and the government are all one thing, right? So,
well, no, you're talking about in China.
yeah, in China.
Okay, well,
Well,
in
they-
China,
they-
you're talking about the military and the government are all the same.
Yeah, well, so is
They're-
everything in the mafia.
Yeah,
it's all
everything-
one
all
thing.
the triads and all that.
It's
Yes,
all
I
one
understand
thing.
that.
So, I mean, you do what you're told, right?
Right.
And so it's not like they really have an open market, so they can adjust the price of steel whatever they want.
No, actually, in fact, what they've been doing is dumping.
They've been dumping,
In
right.
fact, what the whole plan with the way Chinese do business is they will literally subsidize all their
Yeah, right.
factories, and then they'll send it here below market value to put our companies out of business. So then they'll have a complete monopoly on it when our companies are out of business.
Well, yeah, it's an imperialist method of increasing market share.
Increasing market.
You undercut the person till they're out of business, and then you take over that market share. So that's what they've been doing. So, and also China has been, stealing trillions of dollars of intellectual property, and we're running about a $500 billion a year deficit with China.
Well, the problem is what they've been doing is buying American companies that have that intellectual property. And one of the things that they've been trying to put a stop to, and they just done it with the company Qualcomm, which the Chinese were trying to buy for astronomical amount of money, but the federal government said you cannot buy Qualcomm. And it goes back to the early days, even when Clinton was allowing companies to sell L'Oreal, wasn't it? That had all the missile technology that President Clinton said, "Oh yeah, the Chinese can buy L'Oreal."
The Chinese gave massive tips to the Clintons.
Oh, but
I mean, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the Clintons gave them both nuclear atomic weapons
missile
and
technology.
the missile technology. So,
and what the thing about this missile,
but they were well paid.
Yeah, but they were well paid. But the problem was the missile technology allowed China to come up decades in their development when there was no way they were ever caught up.
No, but the Clintons
they were still back in fireworks.
The Clintons
got
hundreds of millions in cash for that.
Yeah, when they bought L'Oreal, that was a huge deal. But
well,
now
they also had the guy they caught trying to get out of Los Alamos, and then they let him go. With the laptop, and that was all the nuclear stuff. So that was the Clintons.
But see, Qualcomm has just come up as another time when the Chinese were going to pay astronomical amount of money for a company that has one value, but they're paying twice as much because they wanted all the technology in Qualcomm that would then be transferred to China, allegedly not transferred, but automatically transferred,
well, the thing
probably within the first week.
I mean, what you've got to understand, if the Germans violate one of our patents, right, we can sue in San Francisco, and then there's full faith and confidence in Berlin. We can attach a bank account.
Right.
You can sue a Chinese company all day long, but you're not going to collect any money in China.
You're not going to get a dollar.
So they're pirates, right? And so pirates are pirates. So I would say they're enemies of mankind, and they're pirates, and they ought to be treated as pirates. And so one thing of doing that is saying, no, you can't dump your steel. But I think that they're stealing. Oh, I would look at it this way. Let's say you go out to your garage in the morning, right? And you want to go for a bike ride. And your bike's gone. And so then you have nothing better to do. You go down to the flea market. There's your bike. You buy it back for $100, even though you originally bought it for $1,000, right? And so everyone goes, "Oh, you bought it for $100. You got it from 10% from China. It's so cheap. We got to go from China."
What a deal!
Yeah, but it's my bike.
It
They
was
stole
mine
it.
to begin with.
And every week they steal your bike back. And after 10 weeks, you were doing better if you could have kept your own bike. So China robs us every week and then sells it back at a discount. And I don't think it's that great of a deal.
Well, you realize, that I don't know if you realize there was the Carquinez Straits. We used to have a whole fleet out there from World War II, right? Magically, it all kind of vanished. No one's really talking about where all those steel ships went. But they're not sitting in the Carquinez Straits anymore. And when you try to find out where those ships actually went, nobody wants to talk about it. Of course, that was all done in the prior administration. And so now we're down. It used to be ships almost about half a mile in length of all the ships, and they're all stacked like 3 or 4 deep. And now there's like 1 or 2 ships left. And it's totally unbelievable, but nobody seems to have a correct answer where those ships went.
Well, anyway,
so
they've been doing dumping, and so this is kind of a shot across the bow, saying like, you guys have been dumping, and I think this is the first step. And then if you look at Europe, it's the same thing, and everywhere has a 16% VAT tax, which I'm against, but that's a 16% just right there.
Well, wait a minute. Everyone talks about if we can replace our taxing system with a VAT tax.
You don't want to do that.
But you don't want to do it because they're never going to give up the taxing system.
No.
They'll add another tax, call it VAT,
but
and then you'll still have all the taxes.
If we sell something to Mexico, they put a 16% tax on it. So when it says, "Oh, you're putting a 25% tariff," well, that's really only a 9% tariff.
9% difference.
Because they have all these hidden taxes. Not only that, China and all these other countries have all these kind of phony environmental rules and different regulations that drive the cost way up.
What's funny, it doesn't have anything to do with the environment.
No,
they just learned the lingo.
If
you use the right lingo, you can call it whatever you want. I call it, it's a green initiative. So let's burn a mountain of coal.
No, but I mean, say they have a cost they add on that they don't call taxes, right? So I mean, if you really start looking at this, we are in the 25% range where we're being taxed to tariff. I mean, they don't call them tariffs, right? But we end up, if you want to buy this from another country, you're paying 25% more than coming the other way. So all Trump's doing is like, well, it should be even. How come these guys?
Well, what he wants to do is be able to have
should be even.
To see if American companies can actually get back and start producing the same steel the way it used to be. Now, I'm going to tell you that's going to be an infrastructure nightmare to get there. But the idea is if you start leveling the playing field, and one way or the other, I'm not a pure economist to be able to decide whether or not that leveling the playing field is really going to work. But I'm going to tell you, it's only 10% on aluminum, by the way. And aluminum's used in a lot of places when we're talking about even the jets and everything like that. Aluminum is used more, actually. Steel's used for more infrastructure and buildings, but aluminum is like
rebar.
Yeah. And so what's happening here is that it won't hurt to see what this will turn into. I mean, you can always repeal a tariff, but what you can't do is rebuild an industry if it doesn't exist anymore. And I think what he's just trying to do.
No, you can. I'm just saying, if you look at the numbers on all these things, I mean, Trump's numbers are pretty close to what they are. He's saying, okay, Chinese in the last few years, they took 10 trillion of our money. They ripped us off. The Europeans are ripping us off, and we're getting robbed. And so let's say, hey, not only I think, a lot of people go, oh, we shouldn't stop from getting robbed. We should let them rob us so they like us.
Well, see, this is the thing. It's like NAFTA.
Yeah, but see, this is the way I look at it. I don't even care about. I mean, I not only want to get stopped getting robbed of half a $1 trillion a year. I want our money back that they stole.
Well, see, here's the problem. What we've been doing is we've been financing, our debt, because our debt's been heavily financed by China. It's not only what they're selling us. It's not only the fact they're buying the bonds. It's not only the fact they're buying the real estate. Not only the fact they're buying our companies, but we have a long catch-up to even get back into the playing field so we can actually make this happen
well, if
properly.
you lose money on every deal, it's hard to make it up in volume.
No, it is. It's very difficult to make it up in volume. And then you got to wonder what. Okay, so here's the deal. First of all, are they going to actually be able to calculate that 25% that we're putting in a tariff is actually catching up to the value of the steel that's coming in?
Right.
Or are they just going to say, we're going to do 25% tariff, and that's going to stimulate enough American industry to restart the steel industry and build a robust steel industry versus, well, maybe we should fall back and remove the tariff and get the cheap steel back.
I think it comes down, do you want to go down to the flea market and buy a $100 bike that was stolen from another American and sold you by the Chinese? Or would you rather buy a $1,000 bike from the guy who made it? And the
guy that makes it is able to profit, and then all the supply chain down the line.
The company he works for didn't go bankrupt, and now he's on Oxycontin and on Social Security, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're buying our own stolen property back every day from China.
Yeah, I got that. Okay, so listen, Mark, I got to tell you something. These tariffs, they're waiting to see how they play out. So what's our third subject tonight?
Well, the third subject is Oscars.
Oscars.
And so
wait a minute.
There's a big thing on
Academy
the
Awards you're talking about?
Yeah, it's the Academy Awards of Science, Yabba Dabba Doo. It's kind of a long title, but basically what it is Hollywood, right? Which, like with the first thing we talked about, it's the dual citizens run this. And they run...
No, it's a Hollywood Foreign Press.
Yeah, well, but it's the dual citizens.
You have to have the artsy films.
They run this, and like, used to be they had like, okay, who's coming to dinner? Right? And it was like, oh, the guy from the bad side of the track. And then it was like, oh, the black guy from the other side of the track. And Dad's like, oh, don't be a racist. Don't be a mean guy, right? Now what they have is they have the white girl, the white Christian girl, is having sex with a swamp monster. So now they've gone to beast. No, I'm serious. They've gone to bestiality. That was the winning movie.
Well, the one
that was the winning
what's really
movie.
Interesting about that, not only that it involved a creature from effectively the Black Lagoon.
Right.
That's just like the old horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a creature from the Black Lagoon, but now it's not sex with E.T., it's sex with a fish.
Yeah, well, it might be an amphibian or a reptile. I'm not sure.
Well, I got to tell you, it's a multicolored one. It has green and blue. And
okay, so here's what's going on. If a white Christian girl brings home, and these guys who are making these movies are Israeli
I'd like
citizens.
to see how they drive to a movie.
Okay, now, but if she brings home and goes, Dad, this is my new swamp monster love interest, and he goes, I don't want you going out with him. I guess he's a speciesist now.
Yeah, he's a speciesist.
Now,
well, wait a minute. Is there a form of racism on that one?
Yeah, speciesist. And so, we had Obama called everybody who voted for Trump is a Nazi cis Hitler. And then we just had the other day Hillary saying we're backwards, right?
We're backwards.
And so I guess if you
We're beyond deplorable.
if you don't let your white daughter have sex with a reptile, you're backwards.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're backwards.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. I didn't see that law. Was that law passed in California yet?
Wait, when you start looking
The
at
reptiles. Wait a minute. Is there going to be a new category for reptiles?
and so
Or amphibians,
and
actually.
so
Amphibians.
so this is the movie that won everything at the Oscars.
And by the way, very few people saw it.
Okay, but
Made very little money at the box
and
office.
What's interesting about this, like the same
I saw
people-
Thor. I
the
thought
same-
Thor made, what, $500 million, and great, okay, but that didn't get anything.
But the same people who make this movie, right? If you go to Israel, right, and if an Egyptian who's a Semite, right, has sex with an Israeli girl and,
Hey.
and lies to her and tells her he's an Israeli, you know what they call that?
No.
That's rape. He goes to prison. If an Egyptian has sex with an Israeli, he goes to prison. I mean, and so, but it's okay for us to have sex with swamp monsters.
Well,
Yeah, so I mean, this whole thing is getting kind of crazy.
But I will tell you this, though. You know that swamp monster would never be shot because everyone at the Oscars was wearing the
yeah.
red little flag for anti-guns. When in fact, by the way, did you realize that on the red carpet, on both sides are SWAT teams with machine guns and bodyguards with under their jacket machine guns. And you know what they're saying? Oh, guns are bad. Except when we're protected by them. And I got to tell you something. They had more armed people at this Academy Awards than they ever had. And they had armies. And very rarely would the cameras pan on the armies with M16s.
Sure.
Of course they won't. But you know what? I wear my lapel. I'm safe. I'm safe.
But I mean, this
Come on, give me a break.
This kind of comes into, there's always been in Hollywood making fun of what they call shiksa, right? A shiksa. And basically that's a white Christian girl who's like a slut or a dirty animal.
That's terrible.
And if you look at Harvey Weinstein, he had sex with many of these, and they're considered, doesn't matter, right?
Well, I don't want to get into Weinstein because the casting couch has been on for 100 years, and every woman that goes to his apartment at midnight and they're wearing whatever, this thing has been blown out of proportion. Weinstein's a pig. But the fact of the matter is, Hollywood's been run on the casting couch since 1920s when Charlie Chaplin got in trouble for this. So it's not like anyone knows that.
But Charlie Chaplin was a dual citizen too. So
yeah, of course.
Of course he was.
Swiss.
He was a dual citizen.
Well,
so,
wasn't he from Switzerland? Wasn't that
Israel?
Yeah, oh, Israel. I'm sorry.
So the point of the matter is, I think that if you're a white Christian and you don't want your daughter bringing home a swamp monster and be calling it a specious, you should boycott Hollywood.
Well, I have already taken that word out, and I noticed that the Oxford Dictionary is adding specious this year. And under it says, see the sex in this movie with the swamp monster. But it was, what is it, warm waves or water, water under the glass?
But I think that falls into if you looked at Woody Allen and Seinfeld, there's always these jokes. These little jokes, cutesy pie jokes about this. And I think you should go to Go Duck and look up shiksa and see what it means. You won't find it in Google because that's been sanitized.
I think I've heard this word, but I'm not familiar with it completely. But I do understand one thing.
Well, it is something that's pretty insulting to white women.
I will tell you,
like the
let's go
ultimate
back
insult.
to why we're talking about the Oscars. I think they're out of touch. I think the movies, now there was something, the Blade Runner, 2024, won for a few special effects. And there were some other movies that won for special effects.
Lizard having sex with the white girl wins.
And by the way, they're very proud of that movie.
That's the winning movie.
But you know what?
The bestiality movie.
I think we're going to have to make this an annual event after the Oscars.
It's just
we're going to have to talk about the hypocrisy of the movies that allegedly win.
I just think that, this is an insult, and I don't think people should stand still for it.
Well, you know what? It's not we don't get the vote for this.
I know, but
the only people that get the vote are the people that are the motion
the Hollywood
picture
people.
Academy.
They're
you have to be a member of the Academy. You can't even vote.
They're giving each other awards.
Well,
but
they're patting each other on the back.
Yeah, but the way you vote for us is don't watch Hollywood movies.
Well,
for the
wait
next
a minute.
year or so.
That's called boycotting with boycotting with your money.
So
don't go.
I would say boycott Hollywood into the next Oscars and see what movie they award. But if Hollywood's going to award a movie like this and you're a white Christian, you should boycott Hollywood. I wouldn't give them a penny.
I got a question.
This is an insult.
Well, what about movies like what what was the Mel Gibson movie, the Jesus movie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that
Well, he had-
actually had $1 billion in sales, and did they get recognized for anything?
Well, he had to apologize for that one.
Oh, he apologized.
Just like who was the guy on the waterfront?
Oh, Marlon Brando.
Yeah, he had to get on his knees and apologize. So yeah,
of course he did.
Yeah, if you want to get back in the movie business, you can't go against the power structure here. But yeah, this is the swamp monster thing, and like it's always been kind of these, like I say, cutesy pie little inside jokes. But this is pretty blatant.
Well,
It's
the
pretty
interesting
blatant.
part is if you look at the analogies of that circumstance from that, you could actually fit this into so many different categories of analogies. And by the way, the woman that was the cleaning lady that actually found the fish was deaf.
Uh-huh.
So on top of that, so the romance and the whole twist was she's deaf, but she recognizes, and so there's this whole overtone of all these different little genres rolled
Right.
into this movie. And so it hit all the spots for people as they watched it. I'm sure people were crying. I don't know what happened at the end of the movie, but I would say that there was probably not a happy ending, and that's why it won. Because
I don't know.
The movies with bad endings are always the big players.
I don't know if the swamp monster ate the pretty white
I don't
girl
think
or
she
not.
ate them. I don't think she got eaten. But I will tell you.
But I'm saying this is pushing it pretty far. I mean, if the Israelis want to make a movie about white Christian girls having sex with swamp monsters, I'd like to see, let's have a movie about an Israeli girl having sex with a swamp monster.
Well, how about an Israeli girl having sex with an Egyptian?
Yeah, or even
Well,
an Egyptian.
I'd love to see this one. Oh, by the way, and you know what? I guarantee no one would complain about that. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
Oh, she got her head cut off. Oh, they went to prison. No
Well,
big
no, it's
deal.
just- it's just
That's the
right.
way they do it.
Well, I mean, I think it's the, it is just such an amazing thing that, these people live in an insulated world where they can really do these kind of insults and they just smirk about it and get away with it. And they go, oh, well, Shiska's actually a cute word. No, it isn't.
No,
Look
it's
it up.
it's a
Look it up.
profanity.
It is a
profanity.
slur. It's a slur.
It's a slur.
And-
Racial slur.
And it's not cutesy pie. It's a slur. It's an insult.
Well, I got to tell you, Mark, it's been an exciting evening, and I'm going to tell you, I want to welcome you back for next year when we start seeing
we'll
the
see
Oscars from
what the
next year.
Oscars, what do they do?
How much you want to bet Black Panther is going to be the number one movie next year?
Black Panther,
yeah,
right.
of course.
It will probably be Misha.
How many categories does that one fit into?
Misha ethnic cleansing will be, will be the next year. The next
Well,
year.
I don't know about ethnic cleansing,
mariachi-
but I will tell you, Black Panther is a great movie.
It's gonna be-
I was thrilled by every second of it.
It's going to be the mariachi band playing De Gilio or whatever.
Well,
it's
it could be. It could be the story of a undocumented alien coming across the border in the '60s and how he worked himself up into a powerful elite.
Well, what's interesting is, like I say, going back to Alexander the Great, right? When he invaded Persia with his army, well, he went there so he could pick strawberries to make a better life. Right?
And make a better life.
And then you had Attila Hun invaded Europe so he could pick strawberries and make a better
Of
life.
course he did.
And then you had the Bolsheviks.
But he was an undocumented warrior.
Yeah, then the Bolsheviks came from New York and invaded Russia and made communism, and that was so they could pick
Well,
strawberries.
they wanted to grow grain and wheat and vodka.
Strawberries.